Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. So as you guys know, spring is like right around the corner and I wanted to do another spring related video for you guys. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing my top spring eyeshadow palettes. So these palettes are more on the colorful side. So if you're really into like colorful eyeshadows and not only just colorful shadows, but even like neutral tones, like everyday colors, because some of these palettes do have those colors in there as well. So if you're into any of those type of shadows, then I really hope you like this video. And a couple of these palettes I haven't even tried out yet, but I did recently receive them in the mail and I thought they were perfect for the springtime. So let's go. Okay, so last year it was actually around the holidays, which I was kind of confused about because this palette definitely screams like springtime and Easter. But yeah, last year Sigma came out with the Creme de Couture eyeshadow palette, and they actually already came out with this in the past. They decided to bring it back out since it was so, so high in demand. So they brought it back. This one actually has, I think it's different packaging. I did not get the first one that they came out with, but I did want to get my hands on this one, and surprisingly they sent it to me. So I was super excited and grateful for that. But this is what the inside, if I can open it, looks like right here. So with this palette, you have all matte shadows. And not only are they matte, they are all like pastel bright colored shadows. And I don't think they have this one available on the website anymore, but I do have a drugstore palette that looks very, very similar to this, and it actually just came out. So we'll get into that in a minute. Anyway, yeah, so this is what the inside looks like. All pastels, all bright, fun colors. So this one has 16 different shades in it. You have a few light shades, a few dark shades, and you also have a couple of shades in here that can be good for a transition color. This dark chocolate shade right here, I could definitely use as that. It's the only shade in this palette that I could use as a transition color if I want to just use this palette alone. And other, all the other shades in here are just good to use on the lid. I actually want to kind of get out of my comfort zone and do more looks with bright colors. So after doing this video, I'm probably gonna get some inspiration on some fun looks to do with you guys. But yeah, like I said, if I wanted to use this palette and this palette alone, I would use the chocolate shade right here as my transition shade, and then go about with all the other colors or whatever color I want to use for that eye look. And I'll go ahead and swatch that brown shade really quickly for you guys. I'll swatch it right here. It's not like a warm tone brown, it's a very cool tone. It does have kind of like a gray undertone to it. One of my favorite shades in this palette is this bright neon purple right here. I'll swatch this one too. I've actually played with this one a few times and I didn't really like the look that I came up with, which is why you guys haven't seen a tutorial on it, but look at that. That is really pretty. It's kind of like a blue purple. Really pretty. And then another shade in here that I really like is this hot pink right here. And I think I played with this one too. But what I really like about this palette is, to be honest with you guys, when I first saw it and when I first, received it in the mail without even swatching it, I thought it was going to be really, really chalky and really, patchy. But like I said, I have played with this palette a couple of times. I just didn't really like the look that I came up with. But the colors in here are very buttery smooth. They're easy to blend out. And let me actually swatch a couple more shades in here so you guys can kind of get more of a feel of this palette. Let's swatch this green right down here. Swatch it right here. As you can see, these colors are super, super bright and super vibrant. Like, they are bright. Perfect for spring, perfect for summertime, perfect for, festivals. So this is a really fun palette to have in your collection. And like I said, I really hope that they bring it back in stock. But since they don't have it, I do have a drugstore palette that is very, very similar to it. And it is the new Revlon Color Charge eyeshadow palette. So Revlon just recently came out with a couple of new products for their line, and it's called the Color Charge. So they have lipsticks, they have loose glitters, they have liquid illuminators. They have quite a few products that they just came out with, and I guess the theme of the collection is like bright, colorful, festival theme, I guess. Now you can purchase this palette in CVS. I do know that for a fact because I have seen it in CVS. They actually sent this over for me, but I have seen it in CVS, so you guys can definitely go to your local drugstore to try it out. But this is what it looks like once you open it up, and I will open back you know, open the Sigma palette up again so y'all can see them side by side. Now obviously the Sigma palette has more colors in it, but the colors in the Sigma palette are very similar to the colors in the Revlon Color Charge palette. So what I'll do, since I've already swatched a couple of shades from the Sigma palette, I will swatch the shades that look similar to the shades in the Sigma palette from this palette. So I'll go ahead and swatch this. Ooh, this is like really soft and buttery and pigmented. I did state in the beginning that I haven't used a couple of the palettes that I'm sharing in today's video, and this is one of them. So this is a good time for me to do kind of like a first impression with you guys. But first impression with this is just very buttery. It's very creamy, and I'll swatch it right above the chocolate shade from the Sigma palette, which, as you can see, it is much darker than the shade from the Sigma palette. And there it is, them side by side. So this shade right here is much lighter than the shade in the Revlon palette, but they're both like dark chocolate shades. That is like really pretty. Like the swatch is not even patchy or anything. We may have to play with this palette in like an upcoming makeup tutorial. I do, like I said, want to do like more looks with colors. So I don't even know how long that lipstick been on my teeth, but we're just gonna roll with it. Okay, so there's also a purple in here, kind of similar to the purple that we swatched in the Sigma palette. So let's go ahead and swatch that one. These, okay, the purple is not as pigmented as that brown, but I just have to keep rubbing my finger in it to get that color up. But there is that right there swatched on the finger, and I'll put it right beside that purple in the Sigma palette. There it is right there. Okay, so the purple in the Revlon palette is very similar to the purple in the Sigma palette. It is a little bit darker, but it's very similar. Now going into the pink right here. This pink is super pigmented. I didn't really have to swipe my hand in it too much, but swipe it right there. Yeah, so the pink is very similar to the pink in the Sigma palette. Can y'all see that? And I'm sorry I'm not doing up close swatches, but since these colors are so bright, I hope you guys can see it from like this distance. Now I want to go into the green shade right here and swatch it right. Ooh, that one is super pigmented as well, and swatch it right beside the green right here. Has a little bit of kick up right there, but this one looks like it has a little bit of sheen to it, but the green looks very, very identical to the green that's in the Sigma palette. So as you can see right there, these shades in here that I've swatched so far in the Revlon palette are very similar to the ones in the Sigma palette. The brown is a little bit darker than the brown inside the Sigma palette, but to be honest with you, I would much rather prefer a brown that's darker because I can do a smoky eye with that color. So this one I'm just gonna have to build it up more and more and more just to get a smoky eye, but this one I'm not gonna have to put too much work as I would with the Sigma palette. But so far this palette is very similar to this one. Since they don't have this one available now, you guys definitely get your hands on this one, and it's much more cheaper than the Sigma palette too. So all right, before we put this palette up, I do want to swatch this blue in here because it is calling my name. I want to swatch it really quick to see how it looks. Ooh, that is right. Okay, this palette, this is actually a good palette. So this next palette is by Too Faced, and it is their new Life's a Festival palette. I have not used this yet. So this one and the Revlon palette, these are the only two palettes that I'm mentioning in today's video that I have not used on the eyes yet. So yes, so I'm excited to try this out. I've seen a lot of tutorials on this palette. I love the colors in here. It's just trying to think of what look to go for, but the colors in here are really, really pretty, very bright. They have a couple of matte shades. You actually have 1, 2, 3 matte shades in here, and the rest are like metallics and shimmers. But this palette is really cute. But I definitely feel like this is a really good palette for the springtime and also for the summertime as well, because the colors in here are like definitely screaming spring, summer, and also festival, which is the name, which is life's a festival. But yeah, since I haven't even tried this palette on the eyes yet, I do want to do a couple of swatches with you guys. Now I've already swatched this inside Sephora, but I do want to share my swatches with you guys so you guys can see how they look on me. And yeah, so let's go ahead and swatch a couple of shades. The first one I want to swatch is Fireflies. This is one of my favorite ones in this palette. It's such a beautiful like forest green shimmery color. Really, really pretty. I love it so much. I don't think I have a green like this in my collection. I have tons of green shadows, like tons of glittery shadows, metallics, but this one is very, very different, and I feel like it's one of those greens that I could definitely work with if I want to do like a really, really deep smoky eye with a pop of green on the lid. This is gonna be a look. And the other shade in here, which is what I really like, is called Fantasy. This pretty purple right here, and I'll swatch it so y'all can see it. Can you guys see that? Let me swatch a little bit more. It's not as pigmented as I thought it would be, but there's Fantasy right there. And then Dusk Till Dawn, which is another one of my favorites in this palette. It's really pretty blue. It's kind of like a teal blue. So pretty. These three shades will look really, really pretty as a look. I don't even know how to do it though. I'll probably have to get, you know, more inspiration by looking at people's tutorials with this palette. But I think these three colors will look really pretty as a look. I just gotta figure out how to do it. But those are those three. All right, and I also want to swatch Desert Vibes, which is a matte. So we'll swatch Desert Vibes. Fantasy is also a matte, that purple that we just swatched. That one's also a matte in this palette, but let's swatch Desert Vibes. This is a really pretty like peachy orange shade. I also want to play with Sunset Dream, which is this orange right here. Let's play with this and see how it looks. Ooh, that one has a lot of kick up. Let me swatch it again so y'all can get more color. All right, I actually want to swatch one more shade in here before we move on to the other palettes, and I want to swatch Unicorn Tears, this one right here, and see how it looks. This is supposed to be like a blue iridescent purple shade, which it is. I honestly don't know what I would do with this color. Maybe just use it as an inner corner highlight, but as far as an all over lid color, I don't know what I would pair with it. Maybe I would pair the purple with it. Yeah, that could be a look. All right, so those are a few shades out of the Life's a Festival palette by Too Faced. And like I said, this will make a really cute palette to have in your collection if you want to play in different colors, different metallics, and just come up with a spring look or a summer look. Or even if you are going to festivals, this will be a really good palette to have as well. I actually have one more Too Faced palette to share, which is the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. This is one of my favorite palettes to use, not only during the springtime, but also just pretty much all year long, because the shades in here, you have quite a few warm shades, cool tone shades, purples, peach. You have, you know, the whole variety in here, and I just feel like you can definitely do a lot of looks with this. So if you want to use this for the springtime, you have your peachy shades in here, you have your greens, you have purple, you have your lighter shades, you have gold. So this will be a really good palette for the spring and also for summertime as well. I do have an affordable palette that is very similar to this one that I just recently found in my collection not too long ago, which, by the way, that is something I've really been getting into, is just, you know, using products that I already have and just playing in my makeup collection to just find or just rediscover products that I kind of forgot about. And I do have a palette that looks very similar to this that I didn't even think would be a dupe to the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. So anyway, this one I've talked about so many times on my channel. I've done makeup tutorials on it. Now this palette is more on the warm side, so if you like colors but you don't like those bright pastel colors, but at the same time you want a palette that has, you know, different colors in it, then this palette is really good for that. I feel like you do have more options with this palette since you do have your warm tones and also your cool tones in here as well than you do with the other palettes that I just showed, since those shades are more bright and more colorful and more fun. But this one, you still get color, but it's not as bright, it's not, you know, as bold, but at the same time it's still a little color in here, and this is just perfect for, like I said, all year round, but it's also perfect for spring and summer as well. All right, so moving on to the very last palette, which is the one that I discovered in my collection that I feel like is very similar to the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette, and that is by ColourPop. This is the All I See Is Magic palette. I think I mentioned and also did a look with this palette back, it was sometime last year, but I kind of, you know, dipped into this palette and also something else. I didn't just use this whole palette as a look, but I did share it with you guys, and I just want to show why I think it's very similar to the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. So first start out with what it looks like on the inside if you guys have not seen it. So you do have your mattes, you have metallics, you have shimmers in here. And like the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette, you have warm tones, you also have cool tones. And if you don't like bright pastel, you know, bright, fun, colorful palettes, then this palette is good for you as well, because you kind of get a mixture of both. You get your colors, but at the same time you get your warm tones in here as well. Also, let me just hold them up side by side if I can get it, but I'll hold it up side by side so you guys can see. I mean, right off the bat, you already see colors in here that are very, very similar. If you take out the blue in this palette, the blue and let's see. Yeah, so if you take out the blue in this palette, you have the Sweet Peach palette. I mean, right off the bat. You do have more shades in here. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You do have only 15 shades in the ColourPop palette, and there's, let's see, 18 shades in the Sweet Peach palette. So in the Sweet Peach palette, we'll swatch Candid Peach, which is the peach in here. There's Candid Peach. And inside the ColourPop palette, we will swatch the shade Big Spoon. This one right here. So Big Spoon is a little bit darker than the one from the Too Faced palette, but they are kind of similar in a way. From the Sweet Peach palette, we'll go into the shade Peach Pit. This one right here. There's Peach Pit. And then from the ColourPop, we will go into the shade Something Special. This one right here. There it is right there. So as you can see, the ones from the ColourPop palette, they're more pigmented than the ones from the Too Faced Sweet Peach. You do have, just like the shade inside the Peach palette, the one in the Peach palette has a little bit of shimmer to it. Just a little bit, you can barely see it. But the one in the ColourPop palette, you can definitely see it a little bit more. But as far as the color, they do look a little bit similar. In a way, not all the way, but in a way they look similar. Now picking up the shade Bless Her Heart, this green right here. It's a light green and it's kind of like a metallic. This is a light green, kind of like a forest green metallic shade. Ooh, I'm dropping everything, and we'll put it right here. And the one inside the Sweet Peach palette is in the shade Wishful Thinking. This one right here looks like it has more of a shine to it, but we'll see. Yeah, has more of a gold, and yeah, it's definitely gold once you swatch it. Now going into the shade Summer Yum. There's Summer Yum. And inside the ColourPop, we have the shade Go Wish. This one right here. So that one's definitely the same. So yeah, those are all of the palettes that I have that I think are good for spring and summertime. And also, if you guys are going to some festivals, these are good palettes to have in your collection, especially if you don't wear like a lot of color like myself. Sometimes it's good to have at least one palette in your collection that has all the bright, fun, colorful shades, because you never know when you'll need them. And the ones that I do suggest, if you don't have any of these to pick up, is of course the one from Revlon, because it's very inexpensive. It's from the drugstore and it's very similar to the shades from the Sigma palette. You have fun colors in here that you can play with. They're not all matte. You do have some of them that are kind of like a metallic, which I don't think I swatched. So let's go ahead and swatch those really quick. So this gold in here, let's swatch it right here. So you do have a gold. You can use that as your inner corner highlight or all over the lid, or even if you want to use it as a, you know, a regular highlighter, you could probably do that. And you also have a silver. So there it is right there. So you have quite a few options with this palette. So if you don't have colorful palettes in your collection and you want to just try them out, try out Revlon first before you go, you know, splurging on the other palettes. And you have pretty much all the shades that you could create a look with in this palette as far as like a colorful, bright, fun look. So yeah, but yeah, I think that is everything I have for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you tried out any of the palettes that I mentioned in today's video, which ones you like, which ones you don't like, which ones you are thinking about getting. And also let me know which palette you guys want me to play with in a future tutorial, because I do want to do some more bright looks on my channel. Spring is right around the corner and I do want to do like another spring tutorial. I've already done one, but it's very like everyday-ish. So I want to kind of dip into some color and just, you know, play around with different eyeshadows and different looks. So let me know which palette that I mentioned in this video you guys would like for me to do a look with. And yeah, I think that is everything I have. If you enjoyed it, make sure you thumbs it up for me, and don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.